Hello, welcome back to the Exposure Ninja YouTube channel. We have another fantastic live stream for you today, all about how to get featured by well-respecting websites, which is going to be hosted by our very own Freddie, who you might have seen before if you've been on the channel for a while. And also we'll be getting some fantastic insights from Annabelle, who is part of the content and PR team at Exposure Ninja. How are you doing today, Freddie?
Doing very well, thank you. Pleasure to be here yet again and
Good, yeah, it's
to
been a
share
while.
some. It has been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, share some different stuff to what I usually do. Usually it's all website reviews, but today we're focusing on how to get your business featured in some like really well-respected websites. So there's some really actionable stuff to take away today. Hopefully everyone's going to learn loads, and towards the end as well, we'll get Annabelle to come on and we'll be able to hear some awesome examples where she's actually done this work herself to get features. So really today's goal is to we're going to share 3 methods of how to get your business featured on the internet's biggest websites that are out there. But before we go into that, let me know where you guys are watching from today. We love to see the comments coming in. So I'm currently in Nottingham. Not quite the nicest day today. It hasn't really been nice for about 2 months, it feels like. But where's everyone else watching from today? Let us know in the comments. And a bit about me then, just whilst we're waiting for those comments to come in. So these slides really need updating because I've actually done over 700 reviews now over the past 2 years. And if you don't know what a review is, go to exposureninja.com/review. In terms of my own experience, got lots of experience when it comes to PPC, email marketing, and just general marketing consultancy as well. I'm a marketing consultant here at Exposure Ninja. Hey, Taras, nice to see you watching from Leeds. Hello. And why should you listen to, well, me, us here at Exposure Ninja? We've helped over 25,000 businesses through our services, through our consultancy. Not here to really sell you anything today. This is just pure value. We've also got a few books written on the topic as well. And you can go and grab those at the end as well. So that's how to get to the top of Google and our digital PR book as well. We're very much an award-winning agency as well. So you can see some of the recent awards we've won here, including Global Search Awards, UK Search Awards, European Search Awards, all of the search awards, essentially. We've pretty much won all of those. And there you can see some of the books that we've got as well. And here is myself and the team picking up an award last year. This was down in London, really fun little night out. In terms of what we're getting covered today then. So why should we even bother getting featured? Why do you need to get your website featured in these places? 3 key methods of how we actually go about doing this, and then the help to do so. And there's actually like some really valuable, actionable stuff you can take away and do today yourself if you put the time in, if you put the work in. So then, the basics. This is where we need to start, obviously, the basics. If we don't have the basics in place, we can't really get the work done. Now, what a lot of people think is that press coverage is just going to get you rich, and that's not what we go in to do this for. Yes, it can be very, very helpful. It can be super useful in terms of getting you the right coverage, getting you seen, but we can't expect this to be a sudden get-rich-quick scheme that suddenly gets you loads of leads. This is about 2 really key other things that we have in place to help you progress. So why should you be doing this? Well, it's really simple. Credibility. Credibility is fantastic for your business. Imagine the difference it could make having these type of logos on your website. How much more trust is someone going to have when they see that compared to, say, just nothing there at all, or even maybe some sort of local, not very well-known publications as well. And then the second thing, you can see number 2 there. This is all about SEO. We do this here at Exposure Ninja, not just for the amazing publicity that it gets our clients, but also the impact it has on the traffic that our clients then get. And this then impacts the amount of leads they're getting, the sales they're getting, and ultimately helps their businesses to grow. So where are we starting then? Well, the first place is something called manual outreach. So manual outreach, I'm pretty sure you can probably work out what that means. Manual, you have to do it yourself. Outreach, you have to go out and speak to someone. And I'll be honest, this is probably like the least sexy method out of the 3. They'll get a little bit more sexy as we go through. So where do we need to start then? Well, Magazines and news websites. These two places will usually have two things that we really want and need. One is that high topical authority, and the other one is more of like a targeted niche audience. So I'm sure everybody here that is a, say, marketing manager or a business owner, there will be a website, a news site that's in your space. That might be manufacturing, it might be, say, medical, but even those boring industries, there are places where you know that it's going to be really useful for you to get featured. Now, if you think you're a bit of a boring business, I know not many people like to admit this, but if you do feel like you're a bit of a boring business, put a B in the chat for us and let us know. I know no one likes to really admit that, but we actually really like working with boring businesses. We love it here because this is actually an area that we can be a bit more fun, we can be a bit more creative and create content that then is useful for those clients and also for the magazines and news websites where we get people featured. So if you can get your business featured in the right type of place, it can get in front of a very targeted audience. And then, of course, the links, the backlinks that we get from this, they have something called a really high topical authority. So this can be really, really powerful for things like SEO. And here's a good example of potentially if you're manufacturing, this is a good example of a website you might want to get featured. Now, we can't really zoom in too much here, but if you look at this, if you can see the most red stuff here, a lot of these are quite dry, boring titles. So you've got to really think about who we're trying to work with here. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Now, there are two ways to get into these type of publications. Number one is getting featured. So this tends to come from more inbound requests. Number two is being the author. And that's where we have to think more about the outreach and the pitching side of things. So getting featured tends to be more of like the top level publications, your national newspapers, your international magazine sites. For the manufacturer and those kind of more niche websites, we're going to get you featured by actually being the author. And that's where you then start pitching. So then this is a example to show you on the screen where we've got our client featured in a really top publication. And this has actually been a pretty amazing story, to be honest, in terms of how this has helped this particular business to grow. So in terms of their business, they're what we call a performance management software, which is something where essentially you've got a team of people, and to be honest, they're not working very well together. They kind of suck, but you don't actually realize that's an issue. So you don't know what to do about it. So you know that, okay, there's some things out there. And what this company actually does is they have this software. You plug your employees into this software and it fixes them. I don't think that's the exact copy that they're using on the actual website itself, but you get the gist. So we started working with this business when they were brand new. And the problem with this particular client and what they were selling is that a lot of their customers didn't realize this was an issue that they actually had. So what we needed was their founder, his name's Stuart, to become what we call a thought leader in the space. So this could then help us introduce the audience that he was then getting in front of to this concept of essentially HR software, which at the time was quite new to the market, and yeah, not many of them out there at the time. Now, I think, well, hopefully everyone likes the idea of being a thought leader. If you do think that would be something you'd want to be in your space, in your industry, in your niche, then just put a T in the chat for thought leader, obviously, and let us know. Try and get a bit of engagement going on for everybody there. So yeah, we use this method to help get the coverage for ClearReview for Stuart, and this was getting him in front of the right audience, HR managers essentially. So not only what you'll notice with this as well is that I'll show you a few more examples. This is probably, you can see there's another one here. What type of manager are you? How to step up your leadership game in 2018. So a lot of this content isn't about like, look how great we are, look how great this business is, because in reality, no one's really going to read that. It's way too boring. It's all talking about yourself. So what we need to think about are what are the topics that are going to be interesting to the audience, but also relevant to the publication. So you're trying to bridge that gap of the reader, the actual publisher itself, And by the way, this actual business that we work with, using the sort of thought leadership approach here, allowed them to get to 2.6 million in Series A funding. And then just a few years ago, they actually sold the business for 26 million pounds. So this really can have a huge impact on a business if you do this right. So the outreach process, then, how does this actually work? So we need to think about, there's obviously planning involved. Who's your target audience? What do they care about? Where are they? What publications do they actually read? What type of content are these people publishing? And don't think of this, we're gonna like publish a press release about the latest widget that your business is selling in some remote location like the Faroe Islands. Like, nobody really cares about that. So we need to think, if I was writing this for a publication on that topic that our target audience would really care about, what would I write? So essentially you're becoming like a staff writer for them almost. So the next thing is then the pitching side of things. This is where we actually go out and we do the work. So there is a few things we need to look at. Who is the right contact? The best way to go about doing this is finding articles on a similar topic, looking at the actual byline. So who wrote that? Can you find maybe their Twitter handle, their email address? And if not, if you can't find the byline, can we find the editor's contact information so we can go directly to the editor? We also need to think about what their goals. So we know that the goal of every writer that's out there is to get their article written quickly. And that's because they've got such a big workload, they just need to move on to the next one. So this means that when we write an article for that publication, for that business, we need to think about, okay, has it got the right word count that they've asked for? We need to make sure it's all proofed and edited fantastically. And actually, it has to be good. That's the minimum we really need here. It needs to be good quality as well. And then the last thing is follow up. We know that not everything is going to get secured straight away on the first go. You will pretty much never get a yes on the first attempt. These are people that are really busy. They're working to deadlines. So we need to make sure that we're following up with them really, really consistently. And then the last thing here is building momentum. And this is something that Annabelle actually does really, really well. So what we do here is we be human, we be nice, we be friendly with people, and we create a relationship, because we never know, this person that we're talking with, they might be a freelancer, they could be publishing content in more than one place, they might end up working for a bigger publication at some point in the future, or they might have multiple sites as part of their own organization. So being able to actually, follow up, say thank you, this will help you be real and be an asset to that person in the long term as well. Okay, so other things that we need to consider when we're doing this. Realistically, the success rate will be generally low. That's why we need to be really on top of things. We need to make sure that we're being, we need to keep going. Essentially, you can't just keep giving up. You have to make sure you do this. So I think we say that usually you might get an article published for every 10 outreach attempts. We usually expect, so for a good backlink, it's going to take maybe at least 5 to 6 hours of work to get that in place. But you need to think about this in terms of context. So you don't need millions of links. You don't need to be getting thousands, millions of links. We don't want to be focusing on spam. What we're doing this for is because we're focusing on the quality. And yeah, you will get a lot of rejection if you're doing this, but that's part of it. And if you don't like rejection, then I'd suggest just requesting a free review, and we can maybe do this for you instead. Cool. Okay. So, and your product defines the best channel as well. Now we're on to method 2. So these are getting a little bit more juicy, a little bit sexier, I guess, as we go. So this is where we're looking at journalist inquiry services. So there are websites, there are things that you pay for on the internet, and journalists, they'll submit requests for maybe interviewees or for features. They might be doing a roundup, or they might just be doing a really specific piece, and they're looking for experts. So if the request that you see from these areas matches your business, you basically get in contact with them, and they might be able to then feature you. Really, the same rules apply in terms of the way that you're doing your outreach to write the content. So we need to make sure that we are being really proactive. We need to make sure we're making it easy for the person on the other end. And a few a few examples of the type of platforms that we use for this are Response Source and Gorkana. Also, Help a Reporter Out as well is quite a well-known one too. So let's actually look at an example from a few years back. Hopefully you can see this. This is essentially an example from Prima, which is a media outlet. And what we can see here, it's actually quite a good story. So the magazine, Prima, Fiona is a freelance journalist at this place. So really good contact, might be able to write for other publications in the future. Really, really good opportunity, this one. So they're asking for tips about relaxation, and it has a specific deadline. So what we did with this, we replied to this with a specific tip, and then we included a link to the website. So here's the response that we put to Fiona from Luke here at Exposure Ninja. So anyway, for this particular client, we did a lot of this, and we got them coverage in some amazing websites, the likes of the Mirror, huge DA, huge domain authority, which means that it's great for your SEO. And then we actually spotted this specific trend. It was for these things called waist trainers. I don't know if people actually remember these, but essentially they squeeze your waist in. And we saw this as a bit of like an exploding, trending topic. This is also sometimes known as newsjacking as well. So one of the researchers from the Victoria Derbyshire show on the BBC started seeing some of our responses to these requests for this type of product, and actually contacted us asking if the client would appear on their talk show to talk about the health of these waist trainers, essentially how good they were. So what you'll see here is our client. He's the one second from right there, looking very awkward. So we can get you on BBC News essentially, but or BBC Victoria Derbyshire show. We can't necessarily give you the training to be good on TV, unfortunately. But yeah, it was our job to get the coverage, not to show him how to do that. Right, so that's method number 2. This can literally get you on TV, this one. Method number 3 then. This is probably my favorite one because it's just so accessible. Pretty much anyone can do this. All you need is Twitter and, well, a Twitter account, I guess. Now, if you are watching this, write these 2 hashtags down. So PR request, so that's PR request, and then journo request. Now these are magical, and the reason for that is because essentially what we know is that there are editors, there are people on Twitter, they're looking for these opportunities. They're actually telling people they're looking for these specific thought leaders and mentions on Twitter, and you can literally just use that hashtag to find people in your niche, in your area, and spot these opportunities. So what you'll see on the screen now is this is Alison Coleman. So who is Alison Coleman? Oh, she actually writes for Forbes. So really, really good publication. So this is a good example. Now, these are journalists. Typically, they're looking for a fast quote. They're looking for speed. So they jump straight onto Twitter. They start using these hashtags. So this is an example of where we did this. And a week later, we got an article on Forbes. So you can see the response there. It's about working from home and the sort of attire you have. And then, yeah, within just a week, Exposure Ninja featured on Forbes for this specific opportunity. So if you've got 2 seconds right now, go onto Twitter, find Alison Coleman and follow her. And you never know, with the right follow-up, with the right opportunity, you could get yourself featured on Forbes. Let's just find this again. There you go. That's the example one where we got ourselves on there via Tim. Here's another example of this. So this is for Natalie Morris, you can see here. So that's their profile on Twitter, previously at ITV News, currently at Metro UK. And again, we've seen another link come in. This is around sort of climate anxiety for another client that we've been working with as well. So what we're going to do now is actually pass over to Annabelle. She's got some of her own examples here, and I'll let Annabelle take the reins.
Hi, Freddie. Thank you so much. So just going to go through a few more examples. Hi everyone. So just going to go through a few examples of ways I've actually managed to get my clients into some of the really good top publications out there. So just waiting on the screens to show you. But one of my clients that I work with, Freddie actually said when he was talking about boring businesses, he mentioned medical businesses. I've got to disagree. I think medical businesses are probably one of the most interesting out there. Working with a team of audiologists, they have hearing clinics across the UK. And I saw a journalist request for Forbes. And as you can see here, the comment from my client was featured, and also the name of their company. Now, you might be saying, but there's no backlink. And obviously, yes, we do aim for backlinks. It's very helpful for SEO to have backlinks in top publications. However, there is another thing which is really important, and that's your credibility. If you can put Forbes Health logo on your website, immediately people are going to feel that they can trust your business a little bit more, because it's been featured in Forbes, and Forbes is such an authoritative site that people go to. So that can really help you out. Also, if your customers are reading these types of articles, obviously this one was related to hearing aids, which is one of the main things that Regain Hearing, promote, I suppose, one of the main services that they provide. If people read the article and they're looking for somewhere to go, then they, can easily type Regain Hearing into Google search or Bing, whatever you like to use. Their site's going to come up and they're going to be able to get their contact details straight away. Another great example, and this was, I must admit, a little bit harder work, was getting a client featured in the Mail Online. This is the same client, and this was a product that they don't sell. So that's why it was a little bit harder to provide an appropriate kind of comment that the Mail Online would want to feature in their article. And this is where it's really important to read the request and even take a look at other articles that particular journalist has written in that publication, and then mirror kind of the type of commentary you've seen in other articles. Because if you do that, it's a lot more likely that that commentary will be used. And luckily enough, I did manage to get this right. And again, I got my client featured in an article on the Mail Online. This is really good for them because obviously a lot of exposure in the UK for the Mail Online Health. And again, their actual business is mentioned, the name of the audiologist, so people can then look that up to find their contact details. Another great thing about this was the journalist actually asked if I could put him in contact with Lee, our client, the audiologist, because he said that he has ongoing articles that they write about hearing health, and it would be really useful to have an audiologist they know that they can just contact for commentary. So as well as this particular feature, it's put Lee in a position where he's going to be able to contribute to ongoing features. So that was really beneficial. Again, there isn't that backlink that we're looking for. But moving on, I will show you ways to actually get fantastic backlinks in, the top publications out there. So another client that I work with runs a rehab clinic and also a inpatient rehab facility. And it's quite hard to get these types of clients featured in things, but I pay attention to what's going on, and this is what I would recommend you to do. Maybe sign up for Google News alerts, put in the type of business you've got, and it will actually then send you stories around those types of businesses, so you can keep track of what's going on, what's being covered. As Freddie said, this is newsjacking, and it is really effective if you get it right. So I had seen lots of stories, ongoing stories about the opioid crisis in the US, lots and lots of coverage on what was going on with a drug called OxyContin. You may have heard of it, and the Sackler story. It had also been covered in a really interesting series that had also been featured in the media called Dopesick, that I watched on Disney, but I think you can watch it on a few different channels. So I knew this was something really, really topical. But how did I turn it around from US coverage to UK coverage? What I actually did was I contacted the editor of The Independent. I explained that I'd been looking at all these stories that had been covered in The Independent and The Guardian and The Times, but there seemed to be a gap. No one was covering what was going on in the UK. And I had this great client who could offer commentary, but also, even more important, I had someone who was prepared to give first-person experience. Now, if you have a business and you've helped out another business and they're prepared to kind of give their first-person feedback, then this is a brilliant way to get into articles, because journalists are really seeking this first person kind of narrative. So moving, if Freddie can move on to the next slides, that's great. Thank you, Freddie. You can see that the commentary that I provided from one of my clients, if that makes sense, as someone who'd been to Step by Step, to been to their residential rehab clinic, was quite extensively featured here. Now, to do this, what I actually did was I spoke with Adam, and I made a note of different comments that he said that I thought would be juicy, that would be interesting, and that were likely to be featured. Because obviously, you know, if it's something very generic, it's not so likely to be featured in an article. So you can see some of the commentary here about him saying that opioids made him feel like Jesus, and also then going on to the actual read he had at Step by Step and how that basically saved his life. And you can see there we did actually get a live link. Really, really good one, because, you know, very good reflection on the service step-by-step recovery offer. And the live link is their actual business name as well, so really helps them out with their SEO. Plus, it's The Independent, you know, it's one of the top UK newspapers. So that was a real achievement. One thing I will say is this one didn't happen kind of from just one pitch. It did take numerous follow-ups with the journalists, probably about 5 in total, sending different quotes and different ideas before they were happy with what they'd got and said, yeah, okay, we've got what we need. So again, always worth following up. If you send something, follow up. Simply say, you know, was that useful? Do you want more commentary? Is there anything in particular you're looking for? And journalists, you know, they, in general, they really appreciate this, and they will respond, and they will help you out. They'll kind of tell you what they're looking for, so you know what to provide. So I'm really proud of that one. Moving on, one thing I will also mention, just a resource that Freddie missed that I love, is Quoted. The paid version of Quoted is really expensive. I think it's £700 a month, but the free version is great. You get 4 pitches, so you just need to be a little bit careful. I would always only pitch to top publications, but it's a really good way to find top journalists, because you can look at the journalist's name that's requesting the information for the pitch, and then just hop on Twitter, type their name in, and find them that way, follow them that way. So it's a really great way to find top journalists. You know, literally you're just given their names by Quoted, and I would recommend signing up for the free version of that.
Awesome, thanks, Annabelle. I've put that in the in the chat for people to see. So yeah, that's another really good resource that that people can use. And thanks for letting us know all about your personal experience with that as well. There's some absolutely incredible links there, and I didn't mean medical's boring to you. I meant it's boring to some other people. So sorry about that.
No,
Anyway.
that's all right. Yeah, you've always got to think, like you were saying with boring businesses, Freddie. There's going to be journalists out there that don't think it's boring, that they absolutely love that industry. They're really passionate about writing about it. So, yeah, you know, I think just a little last tip from me is no matter how boring you think your business is, there'll be a journalist out there looking for commentary.
That's a really good point, and that feeds in really nicely then to the next recommendations. So go on to Twitter and use those hashtags. Feel free to use the free trial for the Help Reporter Out quoted different services there as well. Do request a free marketing and website review from us. If you're not quite ready for the review yet, based on the sort of questions we're asking, you will still get some amazing free content and really useful stuff. So all really good free goodies, no matter what you put in there. And yeah, so that is, I think, everything in terms of the presentation. Does anybody have any questions? What we'll do is we'll just let you have a couple of minutes to put some stuff into the chat, and I might need to get Annabelle back on just to help answer some of these, as she is the expert here. But yeah, that was awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you so much to both of you. I thought I'd ask a question, Annabelle, about what's the most challenging part of doing outreach, would you say?
I think it is accepting that you're not going to get responses. You know, journalists, they might get 60 people pitching a day. So you do need to just kind of accept that you're not always going to get a response, and not take it to heart, not think, oh, that journalist isn't worth contacting again. It might just be that, you know, you weren't quite the right fit for the article they were writing, but it doesn't mean you're not going to be the right fit for the next article. So just don't be put off by that. And then the other kind of challenging thing is getting the right subject line, because obviously they're getting so many emails coming in. You do need to capture their attention with the subject line. What I find works really well is putting pitch in caps and then giving them an idea for a title. So for The Independent, I think I put something along the lines of UK past addict discusses his experience with opioids, something along those lines, you know, so they knew exactly what I was pitching, that I was pitching them a first source, a UK addict who could talk about opioids. So just make it really clear what you can provide in the subject line.
Yeah, I was literally just going to ask about subject lines after that, because I think that's so important, because like you said, they're getting so many emails a day. Another question I would ask you as well, just because I have friends who kind of work in PR, sometimes journalists can get quite upset if you send them a pitch that doesn't suit them. How would you handle that situation if you received an email back kind of from a journalist who wasn't very, very happy? Would you try and save the relationship? What kind of thing would you respond?
You know what, I've got to be really honest. I've sent out hundreds and hundreds of emails, and I've never had that happen. Not once, not in 2 years of sending out emails. I've never had a journalist kind of send me a kind of negative response. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm getting the pictures right in the first place, or if it's kind of just a general reflection. I don't think they've got time. I just don't think they've got time to send out negative responses. If they don't like what you said, they're just going to ignore you. So I can't really answer that. I suppose theoretically, I would simply send a response saying, I completely understand. Obviously, this client isn't a good fit. However, you know, I'm happy to provide future clients for you. And then obviously, if you're doing this for your own business, you could maybe put a few ideas down. You could say, these are other subjects we could talk about. Do let me know if I can be of any further help, something along those lines.
Yeah, very, very positive indeed. I expect that maybe you choose your journalists and editors wisely and make sure that you're pitching them stuff that will be of interest to them for sure.
Exactly. Just one thing I will say, because this is so important, is obviously journalists are going to block people that send them pictures that aren't appropriate on a regular basis, because they just don't want their inbox flooded with pictures from PR people that, you know, aren't looking at what they need. So make sure, you know, if you're pitching a journalist and you've got, I don't know, a company that does something to do with climate, for example, make sure they're an environmental journalist that you're pitching. Don't pitch someone who writes fashion articles about your product if it's, you know, preventing forest fires, for example, because they're just going to block you. And also journalists talk to each other. So if you're pitching the right types of things, that journalist might then say to another journalist who's writing articles about that subject, oh, I've got this great source, and they can help you out. And you even get journalists, I'm now getting journalists contact me saying, you know, so-and-so told me you've got this great source. Would they be interested in contributing to this story? So you can get, as a business, you know, you can get that type of response as well, where journalists will say, you know, this business has sent me this pitch, not quite right for me, you know, to another journalist friend, but I think it might be right for you. So that's why it's really important to just make sure you're pitching journalists that write about a topic or about the topics that relate to your actual business and what it does or what it sells.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really, really good point. We've got a couple of questions that have come through from the audience. We've got this one from Leonie saying, is there anything you'd recommend for a super niche company? We're a specialist industrial cleaning company. I'm not really sure where to start. It's not a particularly glamorous topic. So where do you kind of start with researching publications and finding editors when it's quite a niche topic?
It's really funny that this question's come up. I actually saw a journalist request today on Twitter, and they were saying niche companies that, you know, have stories behind why they started the company. I'll be honest, I can't remember what publication it was for. I'm not even sure if it was specified, but when I looked at the journalist, you know, they had bylines in The Independent and The Guardian and Forbes and Cosmo. So, you know, really good journalists, probably going to be an article in a high rated publication. So for your particular business, industry cleaning, have you got any unusual stories? Have you cleaned any businesses that are a bit different? You know, that's one way to angle it. That would make it interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And you'd be surprised at the type of questions that come through on, for instance, the Harrow emails. Like there was one time when there was one publication that was constantly asking, which are the best pillows you would like for an Airbnb? Which are the best towels for an Airbnb? And they were that specific. So you never know what's going to come through on websites like that. Like there are a lot of topics that are super niche where they want an expert in that area. So yeah. And Dale shared a cleaning client that we've had huge success with. If you'd like to have a look, you should be able to copy and paste that, or you can just go to exposureninja.com/case study/MCS cleaning. Have another question from Charles. I get a lot of emails asking if I'm interested in paid commentary, etc., in national newspapers and online pages. Are these worth doing? So this is a question really about paid sponsored content, which I'm not sure if either of you know much about and what you have to kind of share about whether that's worth doing.
What I would say is that there's a lot of PR agencies out there that do this. And they do get good results because it's what they do. It's what, you know, that's how they make their money, is getting people into these publications. There is a difference between being in a publication that you've paid to actually be in, because it normally will say like sponsored somewhere on the article at the top. And, you know, as a reader, I must admit, I always skip any article that says sponsored. So that's kind of something worth considering. Although you can still use the logo, obviously, on your site. So that has some value in it. The only other thing I would say is you will pay very high rates to be in publications like Forbes. I think it's something around $5,000. So, you know, you're looking at a lot of money, which, to be perfectly honest, you know, I got my client into Forbes just by responding to a Harrow inquiry. So I think it does depend on your business and how much time you want to invest in outreach. You know, it might even be worth considering outsourcing it to a company like ours. Probably be less expensive than kind of actually paying to be in publications, and more beneficial because you haven't got that horrible sponsored kind of thing at the top of the article.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like sort of the question of Google ads versus SEO as well. They both work. One, though, you have to pay up front, and that's basically the same thing here, isn't it? It's how much are you willing to sort of invest versus making it more organic and long term.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's worth thinking about as well. You know, is it worth being in actually a smaller publication for free that your target audience actually read, as opposed to paying to be in a huge newspaper where actually the people reading it aren't really your audience? Like, for instance, we were discussing an industrial cleaning company earlier. If you were to read about that in, like, I don't know, the Daily Mail, I think you'd be a bit like, what is this article doing here? Whereas if you were reading about it in potentially a more niche publication that focused more around, you know, your industry and the kind of industries that you clean for, that makes a lot more sense and would probably be a lot more worth your time and worth your money. I'll give a couple more moments for people to ask some more questions, but I don't know if there's anything, Freddie or Annabelle, that you would like to add that you feel like you didn't cover, any things that have popped up since we've talked about the questions, anything like that you might want to discuss.
So
go on, Annabelle.
Freddie.
You go first. No, you go.
I was just going to pick up on what you just said about going into industry-specific publications, and just a nice kind of outreach you can do is look up those industry-specific publications on Google, find the editors and contact them, because, you know, you've probably got a relatively high chance of getting a response if you do that. Follow it up. And yeah, I would agree with you that that's really worthwhile doing if you're, you know, a more niche style business.
Really, Freddie? Yeah,
my question to you, Annabelle, was going to be, how many contacts do you reckon you have now, and how long has it taken you to build that up? So it's the difference basically between trying to do this yourself versus maybe working with an agency like us who has multiple people doing this day in, day out.
Did you hear the question, Annabelle?
I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I've actually found that having a good Twitter profile is the best way to build up contacts, because you can just follow the journalists, or if you see their names on a pitch on Quoted or Harrow, you can look them up and find them that way and follow them. And what you want to do is you want to create a relationship with them. And just a few little tips, as well as following them, make sure that you go to your kind of homepage, because then it will bring up the articles that they're writing, rather than just going to the journo request page and looking at their requests. Make sure you heart their articles. If there's something that resonates with you, make a comment about it. It is really appreciated. You wouldn't believe how much hate mail and hate commentary that journalists get. So anything really positive will help you stand out. And, you know, send them a little private message with your email saying, you know, I can help if you ever need commentary. I have lots of different clients. Or if you're a business, you know, this is my business. Again, make sure if you're doing this, that you're doing it for a journalist that writes about your area of business or your industry. I would say, sorry, just to answer your question, Freddie, I do tend to be a bit of a tangent queen, it's taken me about a year to build up around 90 contacts, but they're not just any contacts. These are journalists that write for the really, really top publications.
Yeah, I was going to say it makes a huge difference when you have these contacts that you actually have a relationship with, that you know that you're going to be able to provide them with something good. You know, they know that, and then you know that you'll be able to get a good result out of it. And sort of, you can ask them, hey, could you link to this page, or could you do this, or, you know, it makes such a huge difference. Then you're not just shooting out emails into the void and just hoping. You know, you're spending your time wisely and it's not being wasted. So yeah, I think that's hugely important. Like Freddie said, you know, it can be really difficult to do, and we, us at Exposure Ninja, have a whole team of people who are creating these contacts themselves, so you don't have to worry about that because we already have them. Dale said, I don't know if this is a question or not, but a ninja once told me that sending along everything the journalist needs, like images, videos, links, etc., in the first email can sometimes be more useful to the journalist than drip feeding emails. Would you say, from your experience, Annabelle, that that's true? Do you think it's better to send everything across initially, or do you think it depends on the type of pitch you're doing and the type of article?
I would actually agree with Dale. In your initial kind of pitch, if there's anything you think might help the journalist, add it in, even if it's maybe slightly unrelated. If you think it will help, then just add it into your pitch. Just one thing I'll say for links is that because journalists receive emails with links in that can be, when you click on them, it can cause a virus. They tend not to click on links and emails. So you're better attaching documents like a Word document with the actual kind of HTTP, so that they can just take that and put it into Google. That's just one thing that I have kind of learned over the time, that I tend to get a better response if, rather than putting kind of just the link, an active link, I give them the whole entire kind of link for Google itself, so they can see that it's not like a link that's going to cause a virus. But it's also worth following up. If you've sent lots and lots of things, you haven't got any response, you know, maybe a week later follow up with, you know, is there anything else that you need? Maybe I didn't get it quite right for you, but we've got other information we can provide. Could you just tell me what you're looking for? Because we'd really like to help you out, you know, just something along those lines.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I want to add as well, if you're responding to Harrow email requests and you email those people, if you add any attachments, they won't be sent through, because they're sent through to the platform and then they get removed because it's not really an email. But if you're emailing editors directly, then absolutely add some attachments. And like Annabelle said, be careful with links, because a lot of journalists have been burned by spammy emails and just, you know, have concerns about it. We've got another question from Charles asking, how important are backlinks when considering like articles? Is it worth hassling for a backlink or not? We touched on this earlier, but it'd be great to get a bit more insight about that, Annabelle.
So it is, I wouldn't use the word hassling, but it is worth asking very, very nicely if it's possible to have a backlink. So, sorry, excuse me. With the Independent article, for example, I did say, once the journalist kind of had said, thank you so much, I've got what I need, really appreciate your help, I did at that point say, you know, we would really appreciate it if you could put a link back to Step-by-Step Recovery into the article. Obviously, Adam does mention that he's been there, so it's a nice natural link, and if you could include it, that would be really, really helpful. And they did. And maybe if I hadn't said that, we wouldn't have got the live link, because they simply might not have thought to do it. It's not even that, you know, they don't want to do it. It's that if you don't ask, you don't get, you know. But don't hassle. Just ask nicely. I would say only ever ask once. Don't keep kind of sending follow-up emails asking for a link, because you're just going to annoy them. They're going to block you and they're never going to want to work with you again. But yeah, just one nice email, definitely 100%.
Yeah, completely agree. And also there is value to just being featured in the article, you know, being the expert in that article, even without the link. Obviously, getting a backlink is great and we do love that, but we definitely should think about other aspects as well, like having that credibility, being able to add that logo to the website, and also having your expert opinion in an article that your target audience will be reading. There's definitely other value there as well. So yeah, it's not always about the backlink, but it's still nice to have. And like Annabelle said, ask once, don't hassle them, don't get in their bad books, because they will not have you back. And it might be that, you know, their hands are tied or they're just busy, and then you would have ruined that relationship. So yeah, it's definitely not worth it. Is there anything you two would like to add, or any more questions coming through in the chat from anyone watching?
I'm all good. It's been good fun. I feel like I've learnt loads, actually.
I feel like I've talked way too much. Like,
No, definitely not.
I should
Not
give
at all.
more. Freddie, really, is there anything you want to say before I jump in?
No, we're all good. Just remember to request your review, exposureninja.com/review. And yeah, we've got loads of additional content on digital PR, on content marketing. If you haven't already checked out our YouTube channel, pretty much all the information you need is there. And also, if you go onto our website, we've got training, we've got guides, we've got blog posts. You can search by the topic you're most interested in, and there'll be stuff there that'll be really useful for you if you're looking to try and sort of attempt some of this yourself.
Absolutely. Well, if no one's got anything else to add, we shall say goodbye to you today. Thanks so much, Freddie and Annabelle, for coming on and offering your expert insight. And we will see everyone next week, potentially. I'm not sure when the next live stream is, but I'm sure there will be one soon. So thanks again for coming on, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day.
You
Will
too.
do. See you later. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.